friends. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 290 of School Librarians United. I am your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian beginning my 18th year, I knew I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself, my interview guests, and listeners who reach out to the podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. By the time this episode airs, the School Librarians of Tennessee will be holding their annual conference just outside of Nashville. I am joining them and presenting 2 sessions as well as giving their closing keynote. Shout out to the Conference Planning Committee for this fantastic invitation. I am so grateful and excited to share the recordings I get in next week's episode, Spotlight, Tennessee Association of School Librarians. I love hearing from listeners, and this past week was especially fun. Leon in Sweden emailed the podcast, and I am looking forward to learning more about school librarians as professionals working in Swedish schools. I welcome you and all listeners to reach out with your feedback and episode suggestions. You can reach me either on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter. My handle is @LMS_United, or the email address schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, I'll be sure to send you a podcast sticker. And now a word from our sponsor, Capstone. Capstone is an innovative publisher and education technology provider of children's content for school libraries, classrooms, and at-home learning. Home of the award-winning PebbleGo research database, Capstone has a passion for creating inspired learning and intellectual curiosity in children, and I'm so excited to be working with them. I'm also grateful to Capstone for their continued commitment to support the podcast in Season 7. They are offering listeners of School Librarians United a very special discount. Visit shop.capstonepub.com and use the code UNITED to get an order of $100 or more for both print and Capstone interactive ebooks. That's code UNITED for $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and ebooks on shop.capstonepub.com. And now for today's episode, Restoring Philly School Librarians, and my conversation with Corrine Brady, Deb Grill, Jenny Lowman, Deb Kachel, and Barbara Stripling. Friends, I'm so excited. We are incredibly fortunate to have 5 advocates for school librarians joining the show today. It is sort of a record for the podcast. We've never had 5 guests all at once at the same time. It's pretty spectacular. All these adults lead very busy lives, and we're just stopping today to be able to share this conversation with listeners. You've all had extensive careers spanning decades, and I mean this with all due respect because, folks, when we are interviewing these amazing guests, their service cannot easily be summarized. Listeners can learn all about your bios in the Core Planning Team page, which I've included in the show notes, because your careers have you're just incredibly impressive people. So the fact that we're all sitting here and asking you to share this space with us is really a treat. Let's go ahead. We'd like to learn who is joining us today for this conversation. Would you introduce us, please? And just give us an idea of who you are.
Hi, this is Jenny Lowman. Thanks again for having us, Amy. This is so exciting. I am not a librarian and I'm not a teacher, but I am an advocate, and I have been an advocate for many years. I am a lawyer by training. I worked as a lawyer for a long time at an advocacy organization, the Education Law Center in Philadelphia, representing families and children in an effort to get them more appropriate programming, just generally advocate for more policies, better funding for public schools in Pennsylvania. I was the executive director of the West Philadelphia Alliance of Children for Children, which is a group with a mission to reopen school libraries in Philadelphia using volunteers. I took that role on in the middle of COVID, and that's kind of also how PARSL came about, was that I looked around and I didn't have any volunteers who were willing to come back into schools, which weren't even open actually at that point. So it sort of dawned on me that it was time to try to get this changed again. People have tried time to get it changed again and try to get the district to start rehiring school librarians.
Well, and Jenny, I'm just going to ask because you've mentioned the acronym of your organization. Could you spell it out for us and explain? This goes back to 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
We really started in 2022, actually. And it's PARSL is the Philadelphia Alliance to Restore School Librarians.
Okay.
Okay. We really, our first sort of big kickoff meeting was in March of 2022. We had about 80 people attend a Zoom.
Well, and we're going to learn more about it as we talk to your team members. So let's go ahead. How about Corrine Brady?
I'm Corrine Brady. You could say that we came together, it was actually a perfect storm situation for us. Jenny mentioned that she had come up with this idea. I had just recently been introduced to her. I am not an educator. I don't have any big degrees after my name, but I'm what Barb likes to call the boots on the ground person. I'm the program coordinator for the John B. Kelly School Library Volunteers. So this is my 7th year coordinating that program. I met Jenny because she was at WEPAC, which were volunteer libraries. I started in 2018. COVID hit. My succession plan, I realized it was an impossible thing to do. I asked Jenny for a meeting because I was going to ask her if I couldn't get anyone to take over for me, at the correct time, which I had thought would be 3 years. And then I would pass it on to the next person if I could be under her wing of the WEPAC organization. So I went to this Zoom meeting with Jenny, and she had double booked Deb Grill. It was 5 seconds into that meeting, I realized that what I was hoping to have happen was going to be an impossibility. We were all on the same page, that volunteer libraries were not the answer. We were on the same page for different reasons, but we were on the same page. And that's how it started.
Corrine, I was really curious. You mentioned WEPAC, and I'm hoping you'll explain that to me. And then, this idea of volunteer libraries is really a tough pill for me to swallow because as a school librarian, the idea that a school would be completely satisfied with just, and I don't say just, forgive me, but instead of having certified school librarians in those positions, having volunteers. And trust me, all of us in the libraries have always worked with library volunteers, whether they are 5 or 8 or 10 or 15, or they are adults, family, community members in our spaces. But it's always been in conjunction with a certified school librarian who's been there. And so this is really quite a departure from something that I might see customarily. Could you tell us, Corrine, about the WEPAC organization?
We are a very cohesive group here. Me, a lawyer, and 3 librarians. But we all have the same goal. I come from New York, and in New York, I ran a volunteer program for a public library. But, that was arts and crafts, story time. I did that for 10 years. When I came here to Philadelphia, I knew nothing about Philadelphia. I had no idea there were no there were a limited number of librarians. I had no idea. To give myself another whatever outlet, I became a sub, and I was a sub for 6 months and then ended up running the program because I had the most experience. However, one of the other volunteers who was shelving books alongside of me, a woman named Doris Heiss, I asked her what she did in her previous life, and she told me she was a retired certified teacher librarian. And I said, wow, will you run this library? So you see, I had no experience in a school. The thought of whether we could work in place of a librarian never entered my head. It was just fulfilling a role, which was getting books to students who were Title I students who didn't have their own books, and reading stories, etc. Being an intelligent being, which I hope I am, somewhat intelligent, it didn't take me long to realize that this was not sustainable. And COVID really brought that home because it was mainly retired older people. And they just flew the coop.
Deb Grill, would you introduce yourself and tell us something about your background? Because everybody seems to be coming at this challenge from different perspectives.
Well, I was a teacher and a librarian in the school district, the Philadelphia School District, for 34 years. After I retired, I became part of a group of us, after we retired, decided that we were going to form the Alliance for Philadelphia Public Schools because the state had taken over the district by then, and we were very angry. And we wanted to go to all of the board meetings and see what they were up to. So at every board meeting, one of us would speak about libraries because we felt that they were cutting libraries left and right, and we thought that we had to keep it in their face. And we did, but it wasn't enough. I mean, now we have 4 librarians in the system, so we tried. But then when I saw Jenny's letter to the editors in the Philadelphia Inquirer talking about school libraries, and she had her email address there, I got in touch with her and said, whoa, let's do something. And she had already teamed up with Corrine, so that's how I got involved.
Fantastic. I think that there's always somebody looking for how the movement that you all created really sort of ignited. And it, like you've already said, it was this perfect storm. And you have professionals like yourself who know we can do better. So let's go ahead and keep on meeting so let's go ahead. How about Deb Kachel? You want to introduce yourself because you are another member of this team.
Yes, and like Deb Grill, I am a retired school librarian. I have 30 plus years. And I also have been working as an adjunct at various universities, teaching teachers in school library certification programs. Currently, I work with Antioch University, Seattle. This is an online graduate program, and we are teaching teachers to become school librarians. And it's interesting that I came into this picture way back in January of 2020 when the Pennsylvania School Librarians Association held a rally in front of the Philadelphia School District. Because even at that time, we knew the number of school librarians in the district had kept going down and down and down. And when we held that rally, that's when I met a lot of these people. So when Jenny held the Zoom to get all of us together, of course, I joined in representing Pennsylvania School Librarians Association. And I think one of the strengths of this group is, yes, our mission and our vision is all the same, but it is such a group of different people from diverse backgrounds that I think it actually makes this group very strong.
I am blown away by the breadth of experience and talent and skills that you bring to this, because it really is. And friends, I am so excited to be including this amazing website because it truly represents sort of what I would consider to be best practice in terms of advocacy, because your goal is to rally as many supporters as possible. And you've done that in a way that really is so intuitive. So let's go ahead. Our final contestant on today's show, Dr. Barb Stripling. I am so grateful you're joining us here today. Thank you so much. Please, I appreciate that some of our listeners already know who you are, but let's go ahead for the benefit of everybody tuning in.
Hi, I'm Barb Stripling, and I actually have a 40-year career as a school librarian. I started as I started as an elementary librarian after teaching middle school and high school English and drama, and then I became high school librarian for almost 20 years in Arkansas. I have moved several times, and each time it was to take on a new challenge. So some of the challenges that I took on were to be a grant director of the Library Power Project in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then at some point, I became director of school libraries in New York City. And that's one thing that I bring to this equation that obviously is a very big urban system, 1.2 million students at the time that I was there, and 1,700 libraries. So I learned a lot about how to pull together a team. Not every school, obviously, had a library or a librarian, but I'm finding that to be very useful. I went from New York City to be a professor of library science at Syracuse University. And I did that for about 7 years, and I have retired, quote unquote. Now I decided to retire to Philadelphia. And I have to tell you, I was totally blown away. I had no idea that a city like Philadelphia, with our kids who are so needy, so deserving, didn't have school libraries. I was absolutely surprised. And so Deb Kachel actually contacted me because she knew I had moved here and brought me into the group. And it's been a real privilege to get to know everybody, to try to figure out, okay, this is a real problem. Now, how can we work together to solve it?
Well, and that's a nice segue because it really does lead us into understanding the gravity of the situation. It is, today's conversation focuses on the incredibly accomplished team, all of you, who have joined forces because of an alarming trend that you noticed. For listeners who are not familiar with the situation in Philadelphia, in my case, I've studied your website. Would you please explain I won't call it a predicament. It's a catastrophe. It's a crisis. It is a crisis. And please give us a sense of what was happening in Philadelphia that so many intelligent and library loving people like yourselves were like, something needs to happen. Something needs to be done.
Philadelphia at one time had 176 librarians, and they still did not have a library in every school. 68% of the schools had librarians. But it was like just the perfect storm, as Corrine said. Funds were cut for education in Philadelphia. The state took over. Governor Corbett cut $1 billion in education funds. Came in, and what he did was he changed the way librarians were funded in the system. He changed it to site-based management. Previously, librarians had been funded from the school district central budget. So now the principals had to decide. And of course, they also cut budgets. And librarians were listed as costing more than teachers, even though we're paid the same teacher's salary because they had a master's degree. Even though teachers with master's degrees were not charged, principals were not charged more for teachers with master's degrees, they were charged more for librarians with master's degrees. So we fought for years and years and years. The Association of Philadelphia School Librarians fought to have that changed. But by the time we had it changed, it was too late.
And this is one thing that I would add is you need somebody at central office. You need administrative support. When that position was eliminated, I think it was a death knell. there is no way that individual librarians can operate a huge system like that without the support and guidance of the central office. So I'll just give you a preview of a really nice thing that's happening, and that is that the School District of Philadelphia has decided to hire someone as director of libraries. The person hasn't started yet. We don't know who it is, but we're really excited because that's a first important step to starting to rejuvenate and restore school libraries in Philadelphia.
This is Jenny. I think this situation with school librarians in Philadelphia is just one example, actually, of how inequitable the state of Pennsylvania is in funding its public schools. In fact, that funding scheme has been declared unconstitutional under the Pennsylvania state constitution recently. And the state legislature has been tasked with coming up with a more equitable scheme for funding public schools throughout Pennsylvania, because Philadelphia is not the only one in dire need of school librarians and a variety of other programming. In Philadelphia, it's just more obvious and acute because it's the largest school district in the state, with 113,000 students right now in the district, 80,000 in charter schools. And we're not even trying to deal with charter schools right now. PARSL's focus on the school district of Philadelphia, with somewhere between, the other sad thing about all of this is the district doesn't even seem to know how many librarians they have. So they have somewhere between 4 and 5 who maybe work full-time, some work part-time. There is a new full-time one starting this year, but another full-time one got cut at a different school. So it's even really hard to know because the district has no infrastructure whatsoever at the moment for running school libraries. That has all disappeared. So it's been one very stark example of the incredible inequity in public school funding in Pennsylvania.
This is Corrine. I want to add to the situation that developed as librarians were cut. Then these volunteer libraries started popping up in the schools. Jenny, of course, WEPAC had quite a number of them. So well-intentioned people, such as myself, went in to fill the role, or what we thought. So it was a patch-up job, but because we were there in the school doing this work, principals then could feel, well, okay, there's somebody in there giving out books and reading stories. So you can understand now what happened then. There's all these volunteers, little pockets all over the city, working themselves very hard, and principals feeling they had something happening, but it wasn't the right something. So I think WEPAC was formed. You had asked earlier about WEPAC, and I would love to hear Jenny describe WEPAC. And WEPAC was one of these well-intentioned groups of people. So maybe Jenny could explain what WEPAC is.
Sure. WEPAC, the West Philadelphia Alliance for Children, actually did not start out as an organization to provide volunteers in school libraries in Philadelphia. It actually started out as a project between Bryn Mawr Presbyterian Church, which is in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and some inner city churches to support a West Philadelphia neighborhood that both kind of church groups straddled. And as they started to listen to the community about what they thought they needed, everyone said that the schools needed help. And so WEPAC was formed, and it was really formed initially to just be kind of a jack of all trades in school buildings. Volunteers would go in, make copies, read to kids, sometimes take kids out to the playground, whatever was kind of needed. And that ultimately kind of morphed eventually into volunteers in school libraries, because there was a retired school librarian who was in one of these schools who happened upon a shuttered library and said, "What is this here?" And the principal said, "Well, that was our library, but we don't have a librarian anymore, so we just lock it up." And that's how we really got started with school libraries and volunteers in school libraries. There are, as Corrine mentioned, there are several other groups actually that do provide not librarians, but other resources to keep school libraries open in mainly K through 8 schools in Philadelphia. There's one called Historic Fairhill. I believe they now open 4 school libraries in Philadelphia and North Philadelphia. They don't use volunteers, though, to run the library. They actually pay staff to run the library. They aren't librarians, but they do pay staff. The bottom line is that there are these volunteer groups. They've been doing some really good work for quite some time and trying to fill this gap as best they can. But at the end of the day, I keep saying, we couldn't let the school district of Philadelphia depend on the kindness of strangers to run their school libraries. It was so inequitable. And I'm a school board member in a school district that borders Philadelphia. And I said this before, if we tried to cut our school librarians in our district, people would be on my front porch banging my door down. So I think, for me, it's always been this issue of equity. It's just so unfair that kids in Philadelphia don't have these resources and don't have these educators.
Of course, yes. Deb Grill.
Feel like you're telling kids that they're just not worth paying for someone to help them. It's okay if someone throws a crumb here and there, but we're not paying for it because you don't matter as much. I mean, that's the way I read it.
And all of the districts, like Jenny just said, that border the city schools have school librarians and very effective school library programs. It is just such a library desert that this is one of the reasons that we've all coalesced on this equity issue.
Sure, there are a couple of things that we're contending with. Certainly the inequity involved, but what we're finding is that most parents have no idea that their kids have no school libraries. It's just assumed that if you want a good education, you have a school library. We've been going to street fairs and scanning across the city to try to help the community understand that their kids are being shortchanged. So that's one thing that we're trying to do. And the second thing is that we're trying to build an understanding of what it is that school librarians do. It's not just checking out books. It's not just reading stories, although those are very important. But the teaching of skills, especially in today's age, is absolutely essential. Our kids need to learn digital citizenship, media literacy, information literacy, inquiry. They need to be able to ask questions and then find answers and find accurate answers and be able to draw their own conclusions and form their own opinions. And it's a crime to graduate students who haven't learned how to find good information and then find their own voice and explain to others and have something to say so that they can participate well in the community. We're all so passionate about it. And so we can't expect that of volunteers. That's what the training does for librarians. And that's why we're so passionate to, yes, keep up with the volunteers because they're so important. And we're building beautiful cultures in the few libraries that have volunteers. But it's that teaching role and the instructional partnerships that librarians form that really transform these spaces into teaching spaces for all the kids.
I think it's an important distinction to draw because school librarians in the trenches actively working in school libraries are well aware of just how critically important advocacy for our jobs and the spaces we occupy are. Many school librarians become activists because we ourselves are being targeted. We ourselves are in jeopardy of losing our jobs, or we've been reassigned to the classrooms, or we're finding that our contracts are not being renewed. But you are all activists because of an alarming trend that you have actually seen, and you were called to action. Could you go into more detail about how this team, the 5 of you, have all come together to work on this ambitious project?
It's Corrine. Deb K said it did start in 2020, which is true. And for Deb Grill, it started before that, and I'm sure for Deb also. But the rally, and I attended that rally, even though I just went to support librarians. It wasn't personal to me at the time because that was pre-COVID. WEPAC had been up and running before Jenny, lots of schools. I mean, it just wasn't in my head. I don't think it was in the prior WEPAC people's head. Like I said, for me, it was personal because when COVID happened, I saw that the work that I had been doing, there would be no one coming after me. I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And it was personal because these children in my school, we had created this beautiful space for them, and it would be gone. It would just disappear. I had to do something to keep my school going, which is why I went to WEPAC. And then Deb Grill and Jenny and I were together in this meeting with other apps people. And during that meeting, we realized, why don't we get together and hold a Zoom? And we invite all our contacts, and we do it in a night in March and see what happens. And so out of that meeting, 80 people came, and there were a handful of people that were offering to help us. But the 5 of us, we've never lost sight of the goal. We were fortunate that there were the 5 of us, and we met every week, and we started with the basics. Took us 3 weeks to figure out our name, trying to figure out how to come up with an acronym that was doable, and then we ended up with the snake language from Harry Potter without even realizing it. That's how, we got PARSL. We started very small and very slow, but we had our goal always in sight, and we are very copacetic. We often disagree, but we always seem to come to consensus. We've just never given up, and we've had small successes, and we build on those small successes, and like you can see, there's a lot of talent and skills with the 5 of us.
Absolutely. So, Deb Kachel, can you chime in?
What I wanted to say is the Pennsylvania School Librarians Association has had Philadelphia in its crosshairs for a long time. I mean, it is the largest school district in our state. It is the 8th largest school district in the nation. And it likely has the worst number in terms of the number of certified school librarians. And we, have been working and looking at this issue for a lot of years, which is why we had the rally in 2020. And after the rally, we had legislators, we had community people speaking and on the steps right in front of the school district. We had media coverage. And then PSLA started to contact Philadelphia City Council. And we started to contact the school board. And we were starting to make a little bit of headway in sharing why the district needed to hire school librarians. And then COVID hit. And then, of course, the school and the city council said, hey, we can't deal with this right now. We have too many things going on. So, of course, we backed off. And then Jenny and I had been working together for a number of years. And when Jenny decided, this COVID just totally destroyed their model. And she said, I want to pull people together. I want to talk about this. And it was that Zoom that really was the catalyst for all of us. We didn't get here quickly. Like, it took a decade or longer for them to eliminate school librarians to this point. And we know it's probably going to take as much time to build it up again. But we are all committed to the long-term goal here.
Once your team came together as an alliance, I'm sure you needed to come together on your why, your message about why school librarians are so important. You each bring a different perspective to the team. Can you tell me about how those different perspectives contributed to defining your collective why?
This is Barb. I'll start, and then everybody can contribute, because we do actually have different perspectives, and that's what makes it rich. I'm a teacher. I'm a lifelong teacher. I am very student-centered my whole life. Everything has been about students. And so I have real passion and dedication to changing the lives of kids. I have chosen librarianship as a path to do that, but it's not librarianship writ small, it's librarianship writ large. It's the idea of teaching the critical thinking skills, the durable skills, the human skills that our kids need to succeed on their own time, to succeed academically, to succeed after school. And I take a long-term vision of that. But for me, what I bring is that focus on kids, on empowering individuals to find their own voice and to recognize they're treasured, they have strengths, and they deserve to have opportunities to grow those strengths. It's not hard for us to hold on to the vision, but it's very hard for principals and teachers and even community members. They've never seen functioning libraries. We've had a whole generation go through with no school libraries. So no administrators who are fairly young, fairly new, they don't have any concept of what it adds to each child's education and growth. So we've got to build up that vision with all the people, all the constituencies at the same time that we're pushing.
Yeah, Deb Grill.
I think when our children don't know aren't being taught how to do that and have no facility to go to right away to get that information, their power is being taken away from them. And I accompanied after my position was cut, and I became a literacy coach at a high school, and the Alumni Association was trying to raise money to redo the library. They had a librarian, and they had some computers. They had old books and old computers, and they took them to Springfield High School, 20 minutes away. And Joyce Valenza was the librarian there. And after she showed them everything that they had, her kids were like stunned, absolutely stunned. And one of them said to me, "I'll never be able to compete or succeed in college with these kids because he doesn't have what they need, the way to access information and use it." That was like, I almost cried.
I think it's Corrine. I think I already told you my why. It was personal for me with the John B. Kelly School. But there was another part of why we have been able to make progress. I'm not going to say succeed in our goal, but we've made progress, is because when the librarians were cut, the computer labs, digital programs were on the rise. And when COVID hit, all the students in the district got Chromebooks. And it appears to me as if the idea was that Chromebooks, the computer labs, would take the place of libraries and librarians and real books. And in fact, a lot of spaces were converted from libraries into computer places. I don't know the exact words that they describe them as, the information center or whatever the heck. And I think that COVID brought reality back to not just the Philly school district, but districts throughout the country, especially in the urban districts, that the reading levels went down drastically. And I think it became apparent to the district that the computer labs were not going to take the place of teaching a child how to read and the value of a book. And I think that helped us. Sadly, that helped us.
Well, and this is Deb Kachel. I come at this from a point of research. And I actually helped Keith Curry Lance in a couple of statewide school library impact studies. In fact, we did one in Pennsylvania in 2012. And recently just finished the SLIDE project, which is the School Library Investigation, Decline, or Evolution. And so we have really been tracking the decline of school librarians over the last decade. And we even now have a data tool on our libslide.org website where you can go in and get a district profile. And one of the things that we have found with our research is that especially students who likely need school libraries the most are the ones who have the least. And especially our very vulnerable learners benefit more proportionally than all students together. So we know that we could really assist our Black students, our Hispanic students, and Philadelphia is that type of district. We have a lot of diversity in the district. We have a lot of high needs. And these are the types of schools that need school librarians and that instruction and those resources the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your website is incredibly intuitive and walks visitors through these relevant issues, the research behind your activism, and ways to volunteer. Any group advocating for school libraries would learn a great deal from the structure and the content provided on your website. Could you share how you prioritized your message so as not to overwhelm visitors to your website?
Well, this is Deb Grill again. We were very fortunate to have John Kraska of Every Library assist us. And he actually set us up with Nation Builder, the website that he uses. And we pulled together a lot of guidance from him, but we also understood that our membership, we have over 1,100 supporters right now, and they're all in our website. And these people come from very diverse backgrounds. There's grandparents, there's community business people, there are educators, there are librarians. This is just not a library organization. This is truly a community grassroots group. And so our messaging has to appeal to the general layperson. So we really try to keep the library jargon to a minimum. We don't post really heavy research studies, although we could. Excuse me. And so what we do is we try to put articles that appeal to the general populace. And we try to keep our talking points very minimal, compelling, and understandable. Those are the things that really sell us to the general population. And so with that in mind, we curate different resources for the website. But honestly, John Kraska has been a huge help. And then we do have various committees working on different things. One of the committees is the Digital Framework Committee. And I just have some rock stars on that committee. And we've got a very good Instagram. We have a good Facebook. My team are building reels all the time. We are gathering video and images that we can push out there. So on the website, we try to keep our basic type of information. And then on our social media, we try to put the real immediate calls to action, the events where we're going to have a table and collect signatures. We have 2 petitions right now, one to City Council and one to the school board. We're pushing them out on our socials, although they are also accessible on the website. So we're trying to keep the website kind of trimmed down and not overwhelmed.
Excellent. Your volunteer page greets visitors with the question, what is your superpower? And the 5 of you assembled with this purpose in mind, given the breadth of your professional experiences and your extensive careers. I will ask each of you, what is your superpower? What do you bring to this effort?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. This is Deb Grill. As I said before, I think what I bring to this group is I've been working on the advocacy committee of the Pennsylvania School Librarians Association since 2007. Also have worked on various AASL and ALA advocacy committees. I teach school library advocacy for Antioch University, Seattle. And through all of that, I think I bring a lot of the research and the advocacy to the table. One of the things that PSLA has been working on, we have 2 bills in our state legislature, one in the Senate and one in the House, that would require certified school librarians in every public school. And we have been working on that for several years. So I bring that legislative advocacy and the research perspective to this group.
Hi, this is Jenny. I think I actually do ask myself this question sometimes, like, what am I doing? Like, I think actually is it that I bring it to this group? But I think it's the relationships that I have, personal relationships that I have, and connections that I have with people in Philadelphia. I spent a good portion of my career as an attorney representing families in Philadelphia, and also working with folks in the school district of Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, it's a big city, but it's a small town. And it's very much who you know, when you know them, and how it can get done. And I also think we've been fortunate that the stars have sort of aligned in terms of who we know and how we've been able to reach out to them. So that for me, I think is what I can share.
Excellent. Anyone else want to chime in? Yes, Deb Grill.
I bring the knowledge of the school district and the politics, the city politics that have played into this. I mean, I was in the system for 34 years and then fighting it after that. in different organizations. So I know a lot of the history and a lot of the people that came before and that made these bad decisions, and people that made good decisions. So when they say, can we approach this person? I know whether we can or we can't.
It's truly a team effort. Yeah. How about it, Dr. Stripling?
Oh, Barb.
Barb. Barb Stripling?
I think I bring an understanding of teaching and learning. I have an inquiry model, and I understand the kinds of skills that we need to teach as librarians. I have a new effort that I think is really important. It's portraits of engaged and empowered learners at different age levels and the continuum of development. So students can develop their voice, they can develop self-identity, they can develop cultural responsiveness through the library. And so I talked before how important it is, I think, for us to think about the kids and all of this. And it's nice to have the space, it's nice to have books, but we have the books so that they can see themselves and so they can see others. So I'm concerned about, if you see others, are you able to develop empathy for them? Do you have that kind of mindset, those skills that you need to get along in society? I think that's what I bring to our effort.
Go ahead, Deb. Did you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to say that Barb is also very shy in talking about herself. She is working right now with New York City in a program called Teacher to Librarian. And so the expertise that she is learning there in how to educate, recruit, educate, and train a diverse force of school librarians, we are hoping, well, we know she will bring that into our future here with PARSL.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that it's Corrine here, that Deb Grill also, in one of her superpowers is that she knows all about the political structure in Philadelphia. She knows the people, their positions. She knows the school district, the school board meetings. She just has all that background information. I can go to her for questions, those kind of questions. And then Deb and Barbara, they're so, I don't want them to get swelled heads, but they're so prominent in their field, and they're so knowledgeable. They're experts, in their work. So to put together a white paper, I didn't even know what a white paper was until I met the two of them. They're brilliant. And then, Jenny, she's a lawyer, a Harvard educated lawyer. And she worked for a number of different organizations in the city. And she's also a school board member in another district, so she has that perspective, so not saying that another group of people would have to have these credentials. I'm not saying that. What they have to have, though, is a single-minded purpose and dedication and passion.
So this is Barb. Corrine doesn't talk about herself. What I want to say is that she is indeed our person who understands what it's like to work in the schools right now. She's in there every week. She has built a fantastic program that enables kids to have access to books and to reading and to expect that's part of their elementary experience. So we rely on Corrine all the time to help us understand really what are the kids feeling, thinking, understanding about the role of reading in their lives and what we should offer them.
Yeah, and what one area where I will talk about myself is that being a volunteer, I can speak with the voice of a volunteer, to reassure all the other volunteer libraries, library volunteers that there's a role for us, an important role for us. What we need is a librarian. We need a librarian, and then we can be the support system that we really are meant to be and want to be. So there's no need for us to go away. It's an addition. So that's something that I do spend a little bit of time with, getting support from other volunteer organizations to make them understand that I'm not looking to go away. I'm looking for my leader. Take me to my leader.
I really admire your website, and I'm grateful you've shared how it came together. When it comes to research and providing that documentation for why this is so vitally important, you have sort of exercised a certain amount of discipline in only selecting a few pieces of research that would really bring home the idea that your visitors to your website would need to see. So would you provide some rationale, because it's so easy to provide more, and yet you sort of created a very core group of research items to make sure your visitors understood this important, vitally important mission that you're all on?
This is Deb Kachel. I think we have different ways of pushing out information. So we have the website that we do try to keep trim and focused to the general public. We have updates. It's an email blast, like a newsletter, that we send out to our over 1,100 supporters that we know we are targeting our supporters. So there we kind of have some different things and messages. We will always put all of the news articles, podcasts like this one and others will go out to, our membership. And then we have our social media, which we try to get very active with video and reels and photographs that might bring in the younger audience. And then we also go out at different festivals and street fairs, and we have tables, and we talk to parents, and we talk to grandparents, and other people, communicating what it is like in the school district where there are so few school librarians. And as was said before, a lot of the people we talk to say they had no idea. So we try to push our messaging out in our different formats and try to keep it clean, compelling, and targeted to the audience.
Your news from the Alliance shares the steps you've taken and the successes you've been able to celebrate. I am hoping that you will share, because I know listeners are always looking for ways to replicate the success of others in their own communities.
Well, we've gone through a whole process in figuring out what we're doing. As someone said, we spent a little bit of time figuring out who we were, and we came up with our PARSL, our name. We have worked on developing a logo. We've worked on crystallizing our vision. on developing a handout of what do school librarians do, on preparing materials to hand out at the street fairs, as well as all the media things that Deb was talking about. I would say that we have gotten the most leverage from preparing a white paper, where we were able to bring in some of the substantive research. A white paper has a very specific purpose. It's not for the common reader, but we were hoping that we could get some of this solid evidence for why you need a school library and school librarians into the hands of administrators and legislators and city council members to get the real substance in there. So that's one thing that we've done. We also made a decision to apply for an IMLS grant, a planning grant, the Laura Bush planning grant, and we were fortunate enough to get it. We got $149,000. The purpose of the grant, we have three main pieces to it. First of all, we want to clarify what we're trying to do, and part of what we're going to do is have conversations, Zoom conversations with 10 urban school districts across the country who have been restoring their school libraries and librarians. We're going to figure out what are their key strategies, how can we pull them together, are there trends, are there common challenges, are there common solutions? And then we are going to prepare a report on that and distribute it widely. The second piece of the grant is we're trying to figure out how to recruit and train diverse school library professionals. We know if we build this many libraries, we don't have librarians to staff them. So we have a two-tiered approach, and I'm really excited about this. One is what I'm doing in New York City, and that is inviting teachers who want to have a role larger than a single classroom, inviting them to get education and certification as a school librarian, because we know that's a whole school role and it's a leadership role. There are lots of teachers who go, well, okay, I've taught history for 20 years. I'm ready to have a bigger impact on my school. And then we invite them to participate. The second piece, and this is really exciting, is that we are going to investigate the possibility of giving education and certification training to paraprofessionals who are already working in the schools. Many of them may be working in library spaces at least part of the time. A lot of them have just not had the opportunity to get a degree, to get an advanced certification. And the idea of bringing people from the community, which builds in the diversity, and bringing them to a new level, enabling them to get a professional job, the payoff is tremendous for those people, for our kids, and for the whole community. So that's the second phase of the program. And that training will be in conversation with some higher ed institutions that offer online courses, because the courses will be online and at night, which makes them more accessible for everyone. The third piece is that we're going to develop, and this will be really easy, I'm sure, we're going to develop a 5-year implementation plan, because we know you can't just today make a decision, okay, we're going to add librarians to all 218 schools. So we're thinking a 5-year implementation plan. And part of what happened when we applied for the grant, we worked very carefully with the grants office of the school district. We were having trouble breaking in, but we got in through the grants office, and they've now, as I said earlier, decided to hire a director of school libraries, and this person will be pivotal in implementing the grant. So our plan is that as we're developing an implementation plan, we'll have this director who knows the priorities of the school district, knows how to make this an equitable plan that spreads across the city and gives kids an equitable access to this opportunity. We will work closely with the new director to develop this plan. And we know it's got to be flexible, a little change. School districts have priorities. It's important for us. We're not coming in imposing it has to be done just this one way. We're going to work with the people who are in the school district. We're going to base our priorities on their selections. We're going to help them fulfill their priorities. And we're very hopeful that as we develop this 5-year plan, we're going to be able to develop a financial picture and an education picture and a teacher-based curriculum picture that will enable these libraries to roll out across the city.
Yeah, this is Deb Kachel. I think from the very beginning, our attitude is we are not blaming and we are not shaming. What has happened in the past is water over the dam. We start from today. We help and assist the district in solving this issue. And when we finally got to work with the grants office and we were able to successfully get this grant funded, I think that really helped to elevate PARSL in terms of the district administration. They certainly know who we are now. And we took it upon ourselves to reach out to all the media outlets. And we've had 5 or 6 articles in papers. One just was republished in the ASCD Smart Brief. And so we're even getting some national coverage. And I think all of that has helped us build the momentum that we need to work with this large urban school district.
I would like to say, Corrine, I'm just going to try and say this quick, that one of the things I think that helped us was patience and persistence. And we established ourselves as credible people to the district. And I think it happened, again, it was the perfect storm because of COVID, but also the district got a new superintendent, Dr. Watlington, who had come from an area of the country and districts that had school libraries. And although we had little to none interaction with him for the maybe our first year and a half, he was aware of us and our work and opened the door.
Wow. So can we start to talk about like happy endings? You know, this has occupied a great deal of your time. You are this incredible, dedicated team that has been together and clearly drawing upon the different strengths. I emphasis on the word team because each of you recognize that you all bring together your skills and strengths and draw upon the connections that you have built. So, you know, it sounds like we've got a happy ending. I mean, I know you're not done. What do you see as your next steps?
This is Barb speaking. Jenny is our coordinator, so I'm going to let her end up. But I just wanted to say a couple of things that we're thinking about, well, at least that I'm thinking about as we move forward. There are a couple of pieces that we need to push out on, and those have to do with as we're rolling out the plan. So one of the things that is happening in the school district is that they've just named 20 maybe year-round schools. Well, that's interesting. And this is a new thing, and they just named them. And here the school district is started for the year, so there will be planning time to get those into the year-round mode. There are so many opportunities for building fine libraries in those schools. So that's actually the second thing that I was thinking that we want to do. And I know Deb Kachel has been pushing us to do this, and that is developing a couple of model libraries. Part of what we're contending with is that we have principals who have no idea. We have teachers who have no idea, parents have no idea. If we could maybe in some of these year-round schools build a couple of model school libraries in different parts of the city, I think that would go a long way to getting public support and also school district support. Jenny, I leave it to you.
I agree completely about the model libraries. That's something that we've been talking about for a while, that people just don't know what they don't know. And actually we built it into the planning grant. Actually, was we built in some part of the budget to allow the district to take some people to go to New York, to go to DC, to see what functioning school libraries really look like at all levels, because that is actually has been a big part of our challenge is really trying to get people to understand, as everyone has said, what the value of school librarians and what they do in a building and what they contribute to help students. So I think for me, and I'm trying not to be pessimistic, although lawyers by nature are often pessimistic creatures, but I also because I've had a lot of experience, as Deb Grill has too, with the school district of Philadelphia, it kind of tends to sometimes be a place where good ideas go to die. And it's hard to say that. And it's hard to hear that, especially if you've not really ever really worked in the district or worked with people from the district. But unfortunately, it sometimes that happens. And I think that the fact that we are so committed to just keeping moving to be a presence, a supportive presence for the district, for the new library director, that we will be here and we're not going to go anywhere. And we're sort of here for the long haul is really the biggest piece of all of this. And I also think getting families and, more diversity, both racially, I would say, and kind of age. I'd love to see some students involved with this group, which is something that we also built into the planning grant. Was part of that community engagement is also hopefully going to involve students. So, for me, those are kind of the areas I think that we need to kind of move into as well. But I think the biggest part of all of this media attention that Deb Kachel in particular has been able to garner for us as a result of this, the planning grant that we helped the district receive, is the fact that the district is now on record saying that they support this, and that we have a quote from the superintendent that was on the radio saying, this is just the start of, library initiatives in the school district. So for me, when I heard that quote, I was like, evidence, like evidence, like I'm thinking like that we have this, that we have the district committed, we have the highest administrator in the district committed to making this happen.
That's fantastic. You want to hold them to it, right?
Right.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Well, and I just am so grateful that you have come to share your experience, because there are so many people who have experienced some disappointment, some frustration, some just realizing that our students deserve so much better. And this isn't magic. It's just, it takes money, it takes time, and a committed, devoted group like yourselves who are willing to make this a priority to the people who can really affect change. And so I'm grateful that you brought together, these strategies that have worked for you, because it really does provide a great deal of best practice when it comes to strategies that people can implement, whether a small scale or you've done this on a big scale, and see some results. And it's really inspiring. I'm so grateful that you have been able to join us today. And I can't wait to see what kinds of success comes in the future. I know that your website is going to document this so that we can start to see the fruits of your labor truly recognized and materialized for the students who are most likely to benefit.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And I wish you the very best as you move into this next space of looking forward and enjoying all the wonderful things you've achieved together.
Thanks, Amy.
Yep. Thanks so much, Amy. This is great. Thanks for having us.
When it comes to advocacy, you'll definitely want to take a look at the website, which this group created to serve as a one-stop shop for organizing efforts and resources for restoring the school librarians of Philadelphia. If you found this episode helpful, please share it out with your team, your PLN, and on social media. Be sure to follow on your favorite podcatcher so you'll never miss an episode. And if you really like listening today, consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews help others find us. Use the code UNITED to take advantage of Capstone's generous $20 discount off an order of $100 or more. See the link in today's show notes. And be sure to tune in next week when the podcast shines a light on the talented school librarians of Tennessee. I hope you will tune in.